learn about FOMO and how to get over fear of missing out? Do I try to fit in and like align myself with what a lot of my other friends are thinking at this time, which is like, what social scene are we in? Do I really tap into like what my desires are in getting out of the college experience?
Let me interrupt for just a second to say that all happened freshman year. That's intense and crazy.
At the same time, I'm in this investment banking club. I was constantly told I wasn't good enough. I was constantly told I was never going to get a job. I was never going to be able to pursue my dreams. And the guy told me, you will never get into the rooms you ever want to be in. Proud to say I proved him wrong.
It's not easy to talk about times when people are slamming doors in your faces, and in particular, to hear that somebody was proactively telling you you'll never succeed. I don't think we should do it, but it makes me want to name shame somebody. Welcome to Building Value. I'm Jason Nellis. When you think about college, what are some of the cliches that come to mind? College is the best 4 years of your life. College is where the adventure begins. Go on and give it the old college try. Well, regular listeners might have picked up that during a conversation or two, I've talked about my love for my alma mater, Northwestern University, which, located just north of Chicago, is only kind of northern, and being in the state of Illinois is not really that western, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. You see, when I was in school, my focus was on being a theater major, my friends, having a good time, and I definitely wasn't thinking about my career long term. But today's guest is cut from a different cloth, and dare I say, perhaps a smarter one. Today, I'm interviewing Lauren Huttner, who is the founder of Pebble Community Labs and a fellow recent graduate of Northwestern. Lauren works with lots of different content creators and influencers, but always with a keen eye towards research, experimentation, and data science. Our conversation focused on how she founded her company over the course of her 4 years, and how she's worked with clients like Stacy Blackman and Turbo Labs, all while getting her degree. We also talked about how difficult it can be to grow a content audience these days, especially as it turns out, a podcasting audience, but that there are lots of different ways you can experiment with content to find new audience segments. If you like what you see in here, be sure to subscribe, follow, review, do all the things because, hey, they really help. This is Lauren Huttner. Lauren, welcome. It's lovely to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. We have so many things to capture on today's conversation. First things first, you're a recent Northwestern grad. Go Wildcats. How's it feel to be post-graduation?
It's been super fun. A little daunting, but very fun.
Daunting is fair. That's reasonable. You did something that I think is more common than when I went to Northwestern, but is perhaps less common than the world might recognize, which is throughout the course of your college career, you started working with influencers and creators and actually built your own agency. Can you talk me through how that genesis came about and, sort of how you put that initial, inspiration and plan together?
Yeah, I never thought I would go to college and build anything. I actually applied to Northwestern as a political science and transportation minor. I wanted to do urban planning. My parents, my sister, they all made fun of me for it. And I graduated high school during COVID. So I was stuck in my basement for 3 months. My parents wanted me to intern, so I picked up an unpaid internship at a startup. And I think that really changed my perspective on the world. I think it's very easy to feel like other things are controlling you. And for the first time in that internship, I felt like I was a bit more in control of my future. And so I had a mentor, a manager, who really pushed me to explore all facets of business. I was hired as a marketing intern. So I wrote emails, I did social media, which we can dive into the whole social media thing, because I think it's really funny how there are so many parts of my life that kind of led me to my interest in social media, and I never picked up on it until I did some serious reflecting. But she pushed me to really keep exploring entrepreneurship. The point of the startup was to help young girls, uncover non-traditional career paths, and obviously it did that to me. So after the internship, I switched my major to journalism. Didn't know if I was going to pick up a second major, but that was just the switch I initially made. Arrived, quote unquote, on campus, as in I hopped on a Zoom call, took my first journalism classes, and was, writing a lot. I really loved writing about entrepreneurship and business people for some reason in that first semester class, which was taught by J.A. Adonde, an icon. And I came back for winter break, and I was part of this community called Gen Z Mafia accidentally. I think I did like a hackathon with them to learn design really quickly, which was encouraged by my manager of my internship. And I met someone, and he was like, "Well, do you have any ideas you want to build?" And I was like, maybe I should build something for fashion. Like, I'm really like, this is not a world I've been exposed to before. Like, why don't I just see what's out there? So I cold emailed someone that had won a fashion competition, sat down with her. We had a conversation. I came up with this initial crypto idea. That was just like a little strange. Um, and then with that, I applied to a Northwestern program called The Garage, which is our entrepreneurship hub on campus. Pitched this idea to a mentor, and that mentor was Mateo Price, who at the time was building a company called Authentic Media Ascension. And I come in and I'm like, I want to build this fashion loyalty thing using crypto. And he's like, that's great, go build it. Like, such a good idea. And then 2 days later, I get an email. It's like, hey, Lauren, you are really talented. I actually want to bring you on to our company. Let's have a conversation. So I was employee number 5 or 6 at Authentic Media Ascension, and that company did data analytics for YouTubers. So I would sit in calls with Jesser and AJ Lepre and Ali Abdal and basically help them hack the YouTube algorithm to get more views and more money. And so they had a team of data analysts, and then they brought me in to do all this community work. So helping them understand their audiences better, helping them come up with ideas of things to build off platform. And so at the end of freshman year, I was having lots of fun. That summer I ended up working 2 internships in a sense. I was like interning for a venture capital firm and then also helping AMA. That was when Jelly Smack also first came to us. So I was like, getting to play a little hand in that as well. And then in sophomore year, Authentic Media Ascension got acquired by Jelly Smack, and I
Hold on.
felt
Let me pause. Let me interrupt for just a second to say that all happened freshman year.
yes.
Like let's take a moment and appreciate that's intense and crazy. How did your family respond when you were like, I mean, I'm in freshman year and I'm like kind of on the ground level of this, truly innovative space? Did they even understand?
So no.
Okay.
um my parents are doctors and lawyer. One's a doctor, one's a lawyer. They really thought I was going to college and going to become a lawyer like straight after graduation. My sister is going straight through to dental school. So when I was telling them about this startup and this creator economy, I mean, they still don't understand what I do. Um, but they were like, as long as you're occupied this summer and not causing problems, like, good for you. But I remember sitting in my kitchen. We had like these bar stools, and I would sit at my kitchen taking all my calls. My dad would be like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "I'm just talking to cool people and doing cool things. Like, isn't this enough?" Um, but no, I didn't really realize even to what I was getting myself into. Because I've always been like, I've engaged with content, I think, since I was like 10 or 11, right? I remember vividly finding YouTube on my like old white, my like, or like family's old white MacBook. And I remember pulling up Kesha's TikTok song, like a lyric video. And I remember going to my parents and being like, look, it's like a YouTube video. I love this song. And they were freaking out because they didn't like that the first like lyrics of Kesha's TikTok had Tipsy in it. So my mom lost it. But secondly, they knew that me and my sister had discovered the internet and were absolutely terrified. Um, so I've always engaged with content. I've always been fascinated with how, people make money on the internet, people come up with the ideas that they produce, and also like virality in a sense too. Why do people go viral? What do they do that makes them interesting? Why are people? I remember getting Musically for the first time and being like, why is Lauren Gray have so many followers and Lauren Huttner doesn't? Like, what do I need to do? And so when I joined AMA, I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was learning probably the answers to one of the questions I've had since I was 13, which is, why do people go viral? And like, how does that happen? What are the stakeholders? And I think that initial answer that I had received from like my parents, or when I would ask this question a lot, is it's just because people have connections, because their parents are entertainment execs, or they got into these rooms as kids. That's why that they're so popular. And I think to a degree there are some people that that's the case, but for others they've learned how to play the game of social media platforms in a sense.
There is a game, there's an algorithm to be gamified, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why in this world that's such a hot topic for so many people. um, you make it to sophomore year, AMA gets acquired, you're still working on a degree, presumably at that point. It's not like you left college early, but like, I don't know how you're balancing all of these things, because I mean, in college, like getting a job at the local coffee shop was a strain on my schedule. I don't know how you did all of this and still graduated on time.
That's a great question. The nice thing about a journalism degree is it's funny because I think people make fun of the degrees people study based on how difficult they are. I loved my journalism degree. I learned really valuable like video production skills, and I actually bring a lot of the journalism stuff into what I do now. But the class load was like a little bit lighter. Luckily, AP credits. I did write a thesis senior year, which was maybe not the right call. No regrets though. Just learned a lot about Bolivia. Um, and
Sure.
then
A topic on everybody's mind.
top
Yes.
on everyone's mind. Yeah, it was quite an experience. But I think for me, I really was just so interested in it. It didn't really feel like work at all. After AMA was acquired, I felt really lost. I'm not gonna lie. I was still interested in crypto. I actually picked up a crypto project, like a media crypto thing, completely fell apart. I kid you not, 2 months after I had picked it up. And when I told myself at this time, I was also pursuing some other things. I had waltzed my way into investment banking club, which was a choice. And then once the acquisition happened, I was like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. But basically, I was interning my sophomore year in New York. And that's when I came to the decision. I was like, you know what really keeps me happy? It's the creator stuff. It's the being able to help creators build their businesses and build their brands. I had picked up a freelance client right after um, AMA was acquired. I also had a freelance client that I was doing while I was at AMA that I was like, hopefully one day this like blends into the normal business. And so I just was like, you know what? If I want to keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to put myself out there to do it. So I picked up a couple creators to help them build Discord communities. I also worked on building another course for UGC content creators, which was super interesting. And that's coming full circle back right now as I work with more UGC content creators for brands. And then brands started asking me if I could build their brand communities because COVID, had created this big shift for people to want to build digital communities for their brands. And it was going great for sophomore year. And then even junior year a little bit too. I was playing around with that. And then I got my internship at Inc. magazine. And if you know anything about journalism, conflict of interest is just like not a game we play in the journalism world. So I had to kind of stop all my projects. But after my internship, I felt re-inspired again. I was working on their like TikTok account too. I had written some really fun concepts that never got executed, but it was cool. Um, and I was like, you know what? Let me get back into this world again. So I picked up an influencer marketing gig outside of my venture capital internship. So I'm doing two things like once again. Had my two computer. It was so funny. I would walk into this space called Versi, which is like a big co-working space in New York, and I'd have my personal computer and my venture capital computer, and I would just be like, sorry, I have to show you. I would just be like this the entire time, like one computer and the other computer. But I helped do a big influencer campaign for Bama Rush because I had followed that trend the year before, and the year before that, I understood like how that was creating a new talent pipeline, and that really is how I got even deeper into what I'm doing now by just seeking out that experience and just doing it and then learning how to do it really well. And like I would argue I'm still working towards, defining what really well means, but it's been a really fun time.
I love the energy in your story. I love that a lot of these things came together organically, right? Your progression from, beginning college during a pandemic when nobody was having a good time to having grown something that is unique and specific and defined and doesn't have an end goal so much as it's just where you find yourself creating interesting things and building value. Hello, working the title of the podcast into the conversation. And I love that. And I think that there's something in there that's really special about like following your instincts and following the things that you find most interesting and can build value from, right? Like if your attention had driven you towards underwater basket weaving, well, that's lovely, but how do we monetize that? I don't know. Maybe you're not interested in monetizing that. But what you found was that perfect intersection of all of that. One thing I do want to ask you about, a lot of your work is client facing. I've done some of that work myself, and I know how hard it is to manage the personalities of creatives. And as a former theater major at Northwestern, I saw that coming a mile away when I was at school, let alone after I graduated. I'm sure you had a similar experience. What's been your philosophy around managing clients and the interplay of their personalities and your boundaries?
Learning how to set boundaries was probably the toughest thing. Being able to be like, okay, hey, this is like what I'm doing, like this is align with you. And if it doesn't, like just accepting and moving on. Like if you can tell a working relationship isn't going to work, breathe. It's not the end of the world. Move on. There are so many other opportunities out there. Um, but I also really pick projects to work on that I'm super passionate about. So for example, I help run one of the dupe.com accounts. So this guy named Bobby, who's the founder, he's hired a bunch of creators to help him run these accounts. And for me, I love doing it, because I love talking about the product. I think it's hilarious. Like I think just all of the marketing and the story around it is really funny, and I can make it seem really entertaining. But B, I'm obsessed with like figuring out why videos are performing certain ways, and that keeps me driven. And even though it's something that's like very out of scope of the traditional stuff I do with my agency, I do it because it like truly brings me joy to hack at the algorithm, like from a first person point of view, which is super fun. But I could easily just say, oh, that's out of scope, like I'm not going to do that. But I took it because I genuinely enjoy working on it and I align with the mission and the content strategy. But I've had other people where it's like, we're just going to like do these things, you're going to do it the way we want to do it. And I really like entering into places where I know I can add some sort of value. And so I've also learned how to be a little bit more selective because, time is something that's important. So,
I really appreciate that you solved a problem for yourself that I think a lot of other people don't find early, right? That heuristic of where am I willing to be flexible? Where do I need to hold the line? Where am I willing to try something new? And where do I need to stick to with what's worked for me? I think is it's a heuristic that can sometimes take years to figure out. Was that something that you mentioned before? You picked up some of those skills at Northwestern. Was there a particular club or a particular activity? And again, this is me just shouting out our alma mater because I still bleed purple for them, I promise. But was there something there that helped sort of educate you in that direction and help give you that sense of foundation to build on top of for that?
yeah, I think literally everything that happened my sophomore year and junior year kind of forced me to grow up a little bit. So there's like a couple different storylines that are happening all at once. The first is I joined a sorority. Sororities have their own social dynamics. I was not in the in group of the sorority, so I kind of existed on the fringe, which I had to grapple with. I had to learn about FOMO and how to get over fear of missing out. I had to learn, how to interact in different social scenes that I wasn't used to. I didn't go to a frat party until, okay, Northwestern will hate me saying this, but spring of 2021, which is like when things were just opening up. That's when I went to my first frat party. These people who I had been joining a sorority with had been going since the fall. Again, Northwestern won't like that because of COVID, but I was just very on the outside of it. And I had to emotionally deal with, do I try to fit in and like align myself with what a lot of my other friends are thinking at this time, which is like, what social scene are we in and how can we social climb at Northwestern? Or do I really tap into like what my desires are in getting out of the college experience? At the same time, I'm in this investment banking club which I joined for a couple reasons. One, my freshman year, they had sold me this narrative that I would learn about venture capital. And the only way to get into venture capital, according to them, was to do investment banking, which is a complete lie. As someone who got a VC internship my junior year and also turned down said return offer to pursue everything else I want to do. I had joined it because I was sold on a narrative. I joined this club was probably one of the most emotionally degrading experiences I've ever been a part of. I was constantly told I wasn't good enough. I was constantly told I was never going to get a job. I was never going to be able to pursue my dreams. And after the acquisition, I fully called the president and I said, hey, company's gotten acquired, have a killer internship in New York doing exactly what I want to do, which was this venture studio run by Michael Loeb, which was super cool. And I had also received a fellowship from Northwestern called the Little Joe Ventures Fellowship, which this donor gave me $5,000 to work on any idea and pursue professional development opportunities in entrepreneurship. So I used that to go to South by Southwest. And there's another component of this too. That was a life coaching component. And the guy told me, you will never get into the rooms you ever want to be in. And proud to say I proved him wrong. So I'm having all of this stuff happen my sophomore year around social scene, professional pressures. And this fellowship kind of came in my junior year and saved me a little bit. So I had a life coach for 2 years basically through this program that helps me learn more about myself, learn why I was like feeling certain ways and reacting in certain ways to the situations around me. And this life coach also ultimately helped me make the decision around what I'm doing now post grad, which is building my agency. But to be able to have someone, really conceptualize things was so helpful. It wasn't therapy because I feel like for me, therapy is just someone like validating your feelings. For me, I really needed someone to provide me frameworks and like a way for self improvement and a way to understand why my brain is working completely different than the peers around me. And that's exactly what I got out of it. And so with her help, I was able to learn how to set boundaries. I was able to kind of loosen up a bit and respectfully learn not to give an F about anything. Like that book. Yeah, that book, basically, I learned all of that from her. Um, and the last thing I learned was really just how to like treat myself nicely and like be ambitious and not be afraid to pursue what I want and to kind of manifest the life I want. And I know manifesting is like a super like wooey wooey topic, but I'm convinced a lot of the things that I have done, particularly in the last year, have been because I've followed some sort of manifesting. I've actively put myself in the rooms that I've wanted to be in. I've prepared myself for serendipity, and I've just been completely unafraid to pursue what I want, which is really hard to do in a college setting.
100%. You'll find no pushback from me on the concept of manifesting. I am married to somebody who is an expert in astrology and tarot and human design, and also has a Wharton MBA. So I think these things can coexist together beautifully. And I would fully support that if that strategy works for you, as it clearly has, keep at it. No questions here. I want to take a step back, though, and really pull a thread about what you just shared. And thank you for that, by the way. Yeah. It's not easy to talk about times when people are slamming doors in your faces. And in particular, not that my experience at Northwestern was 100% lovey-dovey rainbows and sunshine and unicorns, but like to hear that somebody was proactively telling you you'll never succeed. I don't think we should do it, but it makes me want to name shame somebody, right? Like that's, particularly at a time when we're so much more cognizant of the work that we're all having to do, whether as the people who need to be, given a little bit more equity in life, or those that need to do the lifting up because we've had that privilege. It really frustrates me to hear that. And I'm sorry that you went through that experience. On the plus side, if there is such a thing, what a great way for you to be able to define for yourself your direction, your value as you're bringing it to the table, and to be able to nanny boo boo that guy when clearly you've found success and he's probably still at his Goldman internship hoping that somebody notices him. Do you keep a list of people that you're going to like call out one day when you're like, ruler of the world? I would. I'm just saying.
I don't.
Oh, good.
I
Okay,
sometimes
that's
I like
healthier.
send my friends little jokes about it. Like I have two very close friends who are in on everything. Um, but I will say, like, resilience is something that I think my parents instilled in me in a very young age. I was a competitive figure skater. So if you fall on something, you get back up and try again. In high school, faced sort of similar situations in terms of being like put down or, denied certain opportunities. And so at some point, I just realized like no, the only person that will look out for you is yourself. And so if you're not actively putting yourself in the spaces you want to be in, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. And you know, it's funny. I challenged myself, I think this year and even junior year, to like send a certain amount of cold emails every day and just like seek out conversations that I wanted to have. Read an article and then like DM the author and be like, "Hey, I loved this. Let's chat." Because the number of times that's worked in helping me learn new things, which I think embracing every conversation with curiosity is the number one tip I have for just advancing yourself, but B, building genuine connections with people. Um, and then the second thing too is like I've picked up a lot of mentors just by putting myself out there. The person who I had DM'd about the article is now we now text like almost monthly. He is really invested in my success. He intros me to lots of people, which is really helpful. And I just share what I'm learning, being young and I guess on the ground in a sense because I am Gen Z and he's trying to learn a lot more about Gen Z stuff. So I'm glad I'm glad we have like a mutually beneficial relationship going on.
Let's shift gears a little bit. You talked earlier about data science being a core part of what you were doing, not only at AMA, but broadly what you bring to the table as part of your agency now. Can you take me through sort of, if I'm a new creator and I'm getting started, what are the factors in terms of my analytics and the metrics that I should be tracking? What are the things I should be paying the most attention to? Is it follower count, or is it something else that's perhaps a little bit more buried within my dashboard?
So, the first thing is you probably want to have a sense of direction on where you want to go. Are you creating for fun? Are you creating because you want to make money? Are you creating to get yourself to another goal? Something that a lot of managers I've talked to do with their talent, and I think regardless of whether you have a manager, a creator should do, is set a North Star, set some goals. The metrics that I like to pay attention to differ on platform and also differ on size. And again, the goal. Like if you want to grow followers, you obviously need to pay attention to each individual piece of content and how it's performing. Not only the views, but the likes, the comments, and especially on Instagram, the shares. Because as the Instagram CEO has said, the shares are a very big factor in the algorithm and pushing your short form content onto the Discover feed. Now on TikTok, it's a little bit more, at least in my experience, of an oddball. You'll see a lot of things happen, and you're just like, I'm still constantly trying to reverse engineer what is going on with my content. Um, I've noticed when I post something, particularly on the dupe account, if it gets like a really quick number of views to favorites, it performs really well. The video gets lots of views. Um, Versus another video I literally just posted an hour ago is having this very slow burn to 200, but I know it'll surpass 200 because I'm looking at like the completion rate and the 5-second retention. So there are lots of numbers you can pay attention to depending on what you want to accomplish. But if I'm setting goals and I want to build a more sustainable career as a creator, the thing I would pay the most attention to is views. Do not care about follower count. I can tell you from a brand side, as someone that's working with 8 or 9 brands right now and sourcing creators, I could care less about how many followers you have. What I care about is you hitting a consistent number of views. And so the way that you can kind of game the views is, again, as I said on Instagram, the likes, the comments, the shares, optimizing for that. But on TikTok, it is really paying attention to those retention numbers and those video completion numbers. Because what you can do with that information is change your storyline. So as you become a bit of a bigger creator, And this is what we would do at AMA too. We really start to pay attention to the narrative composition of your videos. So, what I mean by that is like your hook, your body, and your call to action. And we do this with brands too. We experiment with different hooks, we experiment with different storylines, we just experiment with different, what's the action you're going to take? Are you going to click a link in the bio? Right now, what's really popular is commenting on the post and then an automatic DM being sent to your Instagram. Um, and so, really playing around with how your videos are composed. And then you can get immediate feedback on that data on TikTok in particular because of the retention and the percentage of people that complete your video metrics. I am manifesting Instagram ads this as well. I think it would be so helpful for a lot of creators. But even on YouTube, I work with one creator in particular, and I've taught her how to game her narratives so that she increases retention on her videos, increases like average watch time, basically. And what we've done is she's a figure skater, just like I was. What we've done is I've told her, you're going to do your first part of your video figure skating, the middle part your life, the end figure skating. And I want to see how this figure skating first part of your video performs. How much figure skating do we need in your videos for them to reach the audience you want and to get that watch time and ultimately get more money, because YouTube pays out pretty well. And then the last thing I'll say too on the data front, particularly for creators, is you should pay attention to like the different buckets of content and how they're performing. So if I'm going to do a self data audit on myself as a creator, I want to go through and kind of put all of my content into different buckets. Now that can be, what is this content going to accomplish? What's the theme of this content? Who am I collaborating with? If you collaborate with a lot of people, like definitely do that too. And then I would run an analysis of like likes, comments, views, and also shares, obviously, and figure out which buckets are top performing. I would create more content in that top performing bucket, and then like a like 2-to-1 ratio. So, 2/3 of your content should be the content that works, and then the other third should be experiments. And I would do this self data audit, every month or every quarter, and just see like what is performing well. And if you want to get really, really like microscopic scale on it, paying attention to like, what am I saying in the first 3 seconds? How long are my captions? That's what I do. So you can talk to me about that. But that also, like, there are so many little things too that can impact the performance of a video. But at a surface level, just pay attention to the trends. If you're seeing a lot of variation, take a step back, look at your data, do a little bit of a qualitative analysis of it, and that should help you reset.
So much to think about here. I love all of this. I'm taking copious notes, not just for myself selfishly, but also because I want to come back to some of these points later. I really appreciate that you're talking about the nitty gritty. I think a lot of times when people talk about, what can you do to really think holistically, they stay very at the strategic level. Well, you need to be thinking about X, or, you say pay attention to the trends, but you're also giving very specific examples. I would never think about how much of figure skating at the front of a video will affect the completion rate for the whole of a short. I'm curious though, does this analysis translate as well to long form content? Because it sounds like you're pretty focused on short form content.
The figure skating analysis was for long form content.
Oh, great. Totally misunderstood that. That's even better. Okay, I'm thinking it was like a 60-second short, and we're just trying to see how much we need up front before we get people into the short.
Well, we do that. I do that with a lot of the brand content on the short form stuff of like, let's experiment what's at the front. Actually, like, I've come up with a way to build a content machine with UGC creators where I have them do different different compositions of hooks. So whether that's a skit, talking to camera, something aesthetic, like a still shot, and testing the retention. Specifically, you can get that data from TikTok, and I don't know if maybe on shorts too, not on Instagram. I know that for sure. But the long form narrative composition, like that was a really core thing we did at AMA, was literally telling creators, you need to create 3 individual storylines. You're going to place them. We're going to give you advice based on, your past data on where you place those storylines. And then we'll measure and see if that's actually going to impact anything. at the end of the day, platforms care about keeping people on their platform, right? So if they see that people are finishing videos or watching for a really long time, they're going to reward you for that by either A, paying you out, or B, prioritizing your content in their algorithm.
How do I know that the algorithm wants to work for me? Can I just say that, like, one of the, even as somebody on the inside at Meta, right, it is a black box in terms of knowing what works, what doesn't. You're providing some really great examples of some of the tactical things you can do, but I'm not sure that, like, at a higher level, I can trust sometimes that the platform wants me to stay on. It just seems like, there's this constant tension of we want more content as much as we want optimized content. So I guess my question for you is, at what point is it more valuable to just try new things straight out of the box versus optimizing an existing direction you've been pursuing?
That's a loaded question because I too have, again, every single learning I've done has been from the outside. It's been me staring at lots of numbers and trying to figure it out. If you
You don't have
are,
a magic answer for me?
I, I,
Now that hurts.
I'm sorry, but here's what I can tell you. The thing that matters the most in building your content strategy from the get go is testing different video composition. So, when building Turbo Learn's influencer marketing campaign, we really started with trying to figure out how are people going to listen to the information we're going to present to them. So I didn't want to, you never want to like test your message first. You want to test the way your message is presented because you want to figure out how people are going to listen and engage with you. So if you're really early on your content journey, do not be afraid to change the way you're presenting your content, whether that's talking to camera, doing something aesthetic and like still shots, doing a compilation of clips. My favorite new content style, I call it yapping, where you literally just talk to the camera, very stream of thought. Really good for conversion, by the way. Like this is a new hack. But really, like if you're early and you don't have something super set in stone, experiment with the way you're presenting your content. And then once you figure out the way people like to see you, then you can play around with like the narratives, the messaging, you know, your personal identity in a sense. Now, if you've kind of hit a plateau, you're like maybe you're in this for like a little bit longer than just starting out, I like to say. Um, it can be really difficult, the idea of like having to pivot your content, trying to pivot to a different way you're presenting your information. I would say though that if your content is plateauing, it is probably a presentation issue. It's not a narrative issue, it's a presentation problem. Something you're not like retaining your audience in the way that you usually are. It's not that you're not interesting anymore, right? It's just the way that you're talking about yourself isn't hitting the audience the same way it used to. I remember sitting down with one of the creators I worked with on a Bama Rush campaign. And she was like, I really want to have my own podcast. Like, that is my goal. And she had been posting all of these get ready with me videos, talking about Bama Rush. And I sat her down and I was like, if you want to get to this podcasting goal, you're going to have to slowly treat yourself like a podcaster. You're going to have to slowly open up, be vulnerable, yap to the camera, that kind of thing. And so I think when you're hitting those plateaus, like again, take a step back, maybe reanalyze your data for a little bit, but a majority of the time it's just a composition problem and you'll just have to change the style in which you're presenting what you're presenting.
Can I tell you, that is such a refreshing take, because so many times when I ask questions like this, I get a response that's mostly focused on thumbnail or title as it pertains to, YouTube or on TikTok. It's got to be a big boisterous hook at the beginning if you're going to expect people to last more than 3 seconds. And a perspective that says, you're probably saying something interesting, but the format and the way in which you visually present it is just not landing with the right audience, is so much more sane and so much less. There's a term in gaming called min-maxing, right? I put in I try to maximize one attribute so that I get the most value out of it, and I'm minimizing the things I don't care about as much. And so much effort seems to be in min-maxing that concept of like your thumbnail or the beginning of your video as this boisterous Mr. Beast-esque kind of thing. I love the idea of yapping. I yap all the
I
time.
love
In fact,
yapping.
my parents have accused me of that for years. Why wouldn't I just put that on film? I love that. I'm really excited to see, for example, how her podcast turns out, or how other your clients sort of adjust to this. Um, I I don't want to make this about myself, but I do want to say that, like, so much of what you're telling me now is teaching me, and I'm taking, again, fervent notes. I hope everybody who's listening is too. Is there something in the world of podcasting that you're seeing that works really well beyond talking straight to camera? Because my challenge right now is I've got a couple of people who are really deeply invested as an audience, but I haven't found the version of this yet that communicates to a broader audience. And maybe the answer is more, long form videos where I'm talking straight to camera. Maybe the solution is more short form content that isn't AI generated, but that I'm just, I had a conversation with Lauren. Here's 3 quick things I learned from that conversation. Like, I don't know where to start that exploration. Do you have any thoughts there?
First off, podcasting social media is probably the most difficult thing because
Cool.
everyone sees
Climbing
lots of
that high tower.
podcast
All
clips.
right.
I will say, at least for me as a viewer and the content I see performing well, I've been watching a lot of like Planet the Barstool, like Planet Brie, Grace O'Malley, Brianna Chicken Fry. I think they do a really good job because it's so. I mean, unlike this, it's like in person, so it's really relaxed. The banter is really played up in the way that the content is clipped. And so that makes it a little bit more conversational, feels a little bit more yappy, I guess. Um, and ultimately, I think it's why it performs well beyond just the fact that like that account has so many followers. Um,
Yep.
but then you see, the kind of podcasts that are targeted towards entrepreneurship bros, I like to call them, where it's again, headphones, mic set, etc. Feels very, very high production. And like I do think production quality does play a role in how podcasting videos do perform. Um, but to me, it feels like the way that those videos. I think a lot of it comes down to the way those videos are cut. So sometimes they'll start off with the most important learning, and then they will cut back to that person telling the whole story. And that's a composition thing you can play around with. Is like, do I share the first important tidbit and then do the whole long thing? Um, but yeah, I would also, I think for you personally, I would play around with the split screen. So is there me and you in the same frame? Um, on it. I don't know if that's going to work for every clip, unfortunately, of this, but like that's an idea. And then if you ever do in person stuff, like keeping it casual, keeping like the banter, I guess in a sense, can be really engaging too, especially on short form content. Um, but on the long form side of things, I mean, it's just having interesting conversations. I don't know how many people are actually watching a YouTube video podcast rather than just listening to it. Um, but podcast distribution is like the hardest thing to hack. So thoughts and prayers to you.
Well, that feels like a perfect end note. Lauren, this has been amazing. The one last thing I want to touch on before we go is, what is the next step for you? What is the next thing you're aiming for in your growth? The next, the next high point for your agency. Where do you want to go next?
For sure. So yeah, I have my own agency, which is super exciting. It's a data-driven social studio, so very focused on, again, figuring out that composition, figuring out that narrative, and just creating enough content to test and collect data and help brands build a viral playbook, whether that's on the organic front or the influencer marketing front. I also help creators with it too, which is always fun because I think at some point I do want to get back into focusing on creators and focusing on helping creators grow, because it is so exciting to see people really owning their narrative and trying to build something for themselves. Um, every year I set some sort of like optimization that I want to go for in the year. And I think this year's optimization has been optimized fulfillment. And so I'm really focused on figuring out, now that I'm just graduated college, figuring out like what it does that keeps me fulfilled and keeps me happy. And something that I feel really fulfilled doing is helping others. So that's why I created an agency and a service-based business. But there are so many things I want to accomplish, and I'm very much so the kind of person that's going to go with the flow and feel like trust my gut on a lot of the decisions that I make, but also constantly knowing my worth and constantly staying grounded in what I've accomplished and what I want to accomplish. I hate the question of like, what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because honestly, I have no idea. I am just started this. Hopefully Pebble still exists in the next 5 years if it hasn't been acquired yet. But if it has, that's great. I'll build something else. But at the end of the day, I just want to keep continuing to help creators and brands hack this big black box known as social media platforms.
I love it. Lauren, this has been a tremendous pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. If folks want to follow up with you directly, or maybe they want to engage your services at Pebble, where do you want to send them? Where's the right spot for you to engage with folks?
You can hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. That's probably the two best ways. Again, making a website. We'll see if I'll actually let you know if it's up by this point. The website
Great.
is with pebble.xyz. I bought the domain. I just need to actually build it. But yeah, I also write a lot on Twitter too. I'm trying to get better on LinkedIn, so definitely can check me out there.
Amazing. Lauren Huttner, thank you so much.
Thank you.